Will it be third time lucky for Daniil Medvedev, looking to win his first ever Australian Open title in his third final in Australia? Or will it be Jannik Sinner, who is looking to win his first ever Grand Slam title in his first ever Grand Slam final? And it's going to be interesting. Jannik Sinner is the youngest finalist at the Australian Open since 2008, when Novak Djokovic beat Tsonga in the final, and the rest is history for the Serb, of course. These guys have played each other 9 times before. The head-to-head is 6-3 in favor of Daniil Medvedev. We'll go into detail in that in a second. But there's a lot on the line for both these players. Daniil Medvedev has lost his last 2 Australian Open finals to the greats that are Novak Djokovic and Rafael Nadal. And he will be finally looking to put to bed, I'm sure, some nightmares he's been having over those 2 finals, especially the Nadal one when he was 2 sets to love up. And Sinner is arguably the easier opponent out of the 3, on paper anyway. So this is how we're going to break it down. We are going to first talk about their route to the final, then talk about the head-to-head between the 2 players, then I'm going to talk about tactically how it might play out and what to look out for, and then ultimately give you guys my prediction. So Jannik Sinner has not had the easiest route, but he's been very, very good, only dropping the single set. Beat Van der Zandschulp, De Jong, Baez, Khachanov, Rublev, all the way to the semi-finals. And those are all very impressive wins. And then the Sinner-Djokovic matchup, which is the one that everyone was looking forward to even, ended up being a very comprehensive victory for Jannik Sinner, who ended up losing a set in a tiebreaker, but ended up coming out on top in 4 sets. And Djokovic, for the first time in his career, did not manage to generate a single break point opportunity. But Daniil Medvedev, it's not been plain sailing at all, despite arguably having a slightly easier route, you might say. Although on paper, it wasn't the best when the draw came out. Atman beat him, dropped a set there though as well. Rusevori beat him in 5 sets. Felix Auger-Aliassime was straight sets, but after that, that was the only straight set victory he had. Borges was 4 sets, Hurkacz 5, and Zverev, that really incredible comeback when he came out from 2 sets to love down to win the next 2 sets in 2 tiebreakers and then take the 5th set in remarkable fashion. He looked very tired and fatigued in part of that Zverev matchup. He's played a lot of tennis. If I'm not mistaken, it's around like 24 hours on court. So he's been playing a lot. His legs might be tired. It'll be interesting to see how he holds up if the match does go deep. But he is arguably, I would say, top 3, top 5 fittest players on tour. So I'm going to assume that he will be okay. That's my assumption for this prediction, because it's tough to know right on the day exactly how someone's feeling unless you're there in camp with them. And when I say camp, I mean in their team. So the head-to-head, let's talk about that. The head-to-head is 6-3 in favor of Medvedev, but the last 3 matches Jannik Sinner has won. They've only ever played best of 3 matches. They haven't played in a Grand Slam ever. The first 6 matches, as I said, were Medvedev's, and 2 of those were in 2023. So Rotterdam, a 3-set victory for Medvedev, and then 2-set victory in Miami. But since then, Jannik Sinner has been all him. Straight set win in Beijing in the final. Won that 7-6, 7-6. Then another final in Vienna. Won that in 3 sets, 7-6, 4-6, 6-3. And in the semi-finals of the ATP finals, he ended up winning 6-3, 6-7, 6-1. So most likely Medvedev will take a set at least, and even if Jannik Sinner were to win, for example. And I think this will be a close match. I don't think it's going to be, just because Sinner's won the last 3 matches, it's going to be a complete blowout and he's going to win in straight sets. And I also don't think, because Medvedev has the positive head-to-head, that Medvedev will come out on top either. But something to bear in mind when thinking about the matchup is that Sinner is definitely in the better form generally, and also has a bit of an edge in the recent head-to-head anyway between the 2 players. In terms of matchup, well, I want to first of all talk about the mental side of things. So because Medvedev's been here and he's done it, well, at least he's been to a Grand Slam final and he's won one. He's also been to the Australian Open final twice as well. I do think that gives him a slight mental edge just in terms of experience. He's made a lot of Grand Slam finals, and that puts him in good stead. For Jannik Sinner, this is new territory. This is going to be, despite looking like he is a complete mental giant against Novak Djokovic in the semi-finals, this is a a bit different. It's a Grand Slam final. He is one step away from winning a Grand Slam title, which would have been a dream of his since he was a little kid. And he would have been eyeing that up, especially after seeing Alcaraz win 2 Grand Slams, thinking about when is it going to be my time next. So this is a really big opportunity. He's not playing a Djokovic or a Nadal in the final either, which means it's even bigger an opportunity. And he's also beaten Medvedev the last 3 times. So he will go into this confident, but also extremely nervous, I imagine. And I wouldn't be surprised if there are some early nerves. But what he did very well against Djokovic is actually dispel those nerves and have a very quick start. If he's able to do that, that'll put him in a really good stead, I think, for this final. And I'm more thinking that the first set is more important for Sinner than it is for Medvedev. I think if Sinner goes down a set, it could go either way. He could either potentially lose in 3 or 4 sets, or he could come back and take it to 5 or win in 4 sets. But I do think it could be the first option where the nerves then get the better of him in the first Grand Slam final that he's playing. Whereas for Medvedev, I think if he goes a set down or even 2 sets of love down, like we saw against Zverev, I have more confidence that he would be able to have the ability to come back and change the rhythm and momentum in the match. So that's the mental side of things, and a little bit of physical. Obviously, that's dependent on on Medvedev, sorry, even being physically there as well. In terms of the tactics, well, there's a few things. Sinner's obviously a power baseliner, and Medvedev is more about grinding from the back of the court. Although we saw a bit of Netvedev, I was about to say Netvedev, um, the other day against Zverev, some really good net points, and also against Zverev as well, and Zverev, sorry, and her catch. It was impressive, and it looks very unorthodox, but it works for him, and it's actually a nice addition to his game. I'm glad he's coming forward, and at times it's almost like a surprise tactic, so that's fantastic. Also, the drop shot from Medvedev is fantastic, I have to say, and it's an added option that he has, especially when he's playing so far behind the baseline and grinding. For Sinner, he's going to look to try and move Medvedev around with the forehand, especially he finds great angles on the forehand cross court, dragging Medvedev out wide. The forehand of Medvedev is less reliable than the backhand. He tends to make more mistakes on that side, and he tries to go a bit more aggressive on it as well. The backhand is ultra reliable. One thing that Sinner's been very good at in the last few matchups between the two is being patient in the rallies. In the past, he'd get super frustrated and break down quite early on in rallies. His shot tolerance wasn't particularly good, and he'd go for too much too soon in those exchanges. I think now he started to realize how to play against Medvedev. Yes, serve volley can be a big part of playing against Medvedev, but it's also something you need to use in the right moments, and you can't just use it constantly, because Medvedev has started to being able to neutralize that even with the deep return position. I'm also intrigued to see whether Medvedev stands on the baseline for the second serve return. He did that to a degree against Hakac, and Zverev not as much, but he wasn't standing as far back on the second serve return. And Sinner's got a pretty good kick serve, but it's not as big as Zverev or Hakac. So interesting to see how Medvedev handles that. I do think it's very important that both players have big serving days if they want to have a chance of winning. Medvedev had a relatively better serving day against Zverev from the third set onwards anyway, although the first 2 sets were poor, hence he lost them. For Sinner, his serve's been really good. He's been hitting his spots well, and that's been a real positive. And he saved 26 out of 28 break points in this Australian Open so far. And of course, not facing a single break point against the best returner ever will give him some confidence. Medvedev will have to earn his break points if Sinner's serving like that. And I'm sure he will do, because he is extremely good at being able to manufacture break points. And Sinner needs to be careful about coming forward. When he comes forward, is he transitioning at the right times? And make sure that those approach shots are on point and keep Medvedev guessing. Sometimes it's good to go in behind him as well, because he likes to go on the run. And similarly, so does Sinner, especially on that forehand side. So Medvedev might try to be a little bit sensible and almost go down the middle of the court at times and try and break him down with shot tolerance. It'll be intriguing to see how this one plays out. There's so many different ways that it could. Whilst I think about it, and the cogs in my mind are going at 100 miles an hour. But I think I'm going to leave it there in terms of the analysis. I think the serve return dynamic is going to be key. And I don't think the ad court exchange is as important as it was in the Sinner Djokovic match. I think it's going to be more from the baseline, who can gain control in the rallies, who can dominate them, and who's able to actually stay on the front foot and dictate in the points, because Medvedev is a great defender, one of the best defenders on tour. And even Sinner at times is fantastic at defending, especially on the backhand side. But I think both players are best coming forward. Yes, they can induce errors from their opponent, but you would say that Medvedev is the one that is better at doing so. I think it's important for Sinner that he is the one trying to take control of the points, in honesty, and trying to take time away from Medvedev. I think time, when Medvedev has time, that's when he's at his best. So Sinner needs to take the ball early when he can, needs to find good angles, try and drag out Medvedev, try and finish off points in the net, try to make sure that he doesn't get dragged into super long rallies with Medvedev, because that's not the way forward, and that's not the way to win. And we saw that with Zverev, and Zverev has great shot tolerance as well. But as soon as you start going into really deep waters with Medvedev, that's when you're in trouble. So I'm not saying he needs to come out and hit aces and winners from the second and third shots off serve or return. But what I am saying is that he needs to be proactive. And that also means trying to attack the Medvedev second serve, which is quite weak. And Sinner, as a returner, is extremely good right now. He's reading serves fantastically, and he's rushing opponents. And Medvedev won't like that. He won't like it at all. So, especially on the forehand side, if the ball's coming quickly deep down the middle into his forehand, he will make errors on it. For Medvedev, for him, it's going to be about trying to make sure that Sinner is on the back foot, because if he's on the front foot, Medvedev won't, he's not going to win a whole lot of points, even being as good a defender as he is. So he needs to make sure that he is trying to be aggressive when he can be, with the forehand, trying to go line. I've seen him when he's been playing this year, and even at the Australian Open, he hasn't played the best level at times. But when he does play his best, it's actually when he's taking slightly more risk, trying to go line more. He's got effective and reliable shot mechanics by the looks of it. He doesn't make a whole lot of errors, so he's almost happy to go line in a lot of instances, because he is comfortable knowing that he's probably going to make that ball. In terms of prediction, there's a lot of ways this match could go, but I just think, given Sinner's just beaten Djokovic, given he's only dropped a set, and I think he'll be fresher as well, I'm going to go with Sinner in 4 sets. I think Medvedev will take a set, but I don't think it's going to be third time lucky for Medvedev. I could be wrong. It's a very tough one. If I was to give like a percentage chance of who's going to win, I would say it's 60-40 in favor of Sinner. Not more than that by any stretch of the imagination. And I'm putting a large emphasis on his current form and his win over Djokovic, and trying to say that supersedes the fact that he isn't experienced at all in Grand Slam finals. And I do think he's special. We saw Alcaraz, of course, beat Ruud, who'd made a Grand Slam final before in the US Open in 2022, and Alcaraz beat him there. Medvedev is more experienced. He's a better player than Ruud. So this will be a tougher test for Jannik Sinner, but I see him coming out on top. Let me know in the comment section below who you think is going to win and why. Thank you very much, guys. Stay safe and well, and we'll see you next video.